Perhaps I could just ask Anna and Daniela just to introduce themselves. Anna, did you want to just say a quick word about Tully House's involvement in Picture the Poet?
Hi everybody, my name is Anna and I'm the learning manager at Tully House. You probably haven't heard of Tully House, no one really has if you don't live in Cumbria. It's Carlisle's museum and art gallery, and it's probably the biggest one in the county. And Picture the Poet for us was a real learning curve of an experience, but the effects we're still feeling today, long after the programme's finished. My kind of highlight from it was how much my staff and my team got from the experience, so all the CPD that they learned, and all the techniques that we learnt from NLT and Apples and Snakes that are still being felt in our programmes going forward. So for me, that was the biggest highlight of Picture the Poet.
Thank you, Anna. And Daniela, did you just want to?
Yes, so I am Daniela Paolucci from Apples and Snakes, and my role with Picture the Poet was basically to coordinate the project for 3 years, which was, so I saw quite a lot. And it was brilliant because principally what I did was try to organize with the venue the work with the young people, the out of reach. And they are to reach young people, and then to organize the live event in the end, which was quite challenging everywhere, but really fantastic to see all the good things that were done during the 3 months period that we've been at the venue, and be able to celebrate there. But I will tell you more about it after.
So thank you, Daniela. So now this is people's opportunity to ask our panel questions. So please go ahead. Any questions? No? Well, I have a question, and perhaps I'll ask it to Jenny. Just in terms of working with, you talked about working with Culture Bridge. Can you perhaps just tell us what was so good about working with the Bridge, and how maybe other people have observations to make about working with the Bridge in their areas?
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me all right? Yeah. So Culture Bridge has been working not just on this project, but they helped us to set up a Sunderland Cultural Partnership. So they sit on the learning group with us, and we have sort of bi-monthly meetings. And what that enables them to do is to really closely observe how we're doing things on the ground, and sort of guide us and advise us about things like Arts Award and Arts Mark and those sorts of initiatives. So when Picture the Poet came along, they were more than happy to sit on the programme group. So I have a lady called Helen Green, who is our regional coordinator for our part of the north. And she was able to broker relationships with schools for us and advertise the programme. She also came to our CPD, and she promoted Arts Mark to the schools. And 4 of the schools that attended the CPD have now signed up as Arts Mark schools. So it was really sort of direct, links that were made there, which was, effective for the schools, but for ourselves as well. So really sort of networks and, being able to sort of forge partnerships, they were really crucial to that.
Are there others on the panel who've found there's been a connection to Arts Mark or Arts Award? I don't know, Anna, whether...
Not specifically through Picture the Poet, but we found the main benefit for us with teachers was that it was opening their eyes as to Tully House not just being a history venue, so we're really good at history, it's what we're known for, but this really helped teachers get that we're about other things too, and we're making literacy part of our core offer going forward, and that was a really big help for us.
I wonder if we ever thought that somehow these places in the north were like that eccentric uncle that never goes to the wedding, so we have to go to them, because Carlisle's only remote if you don't live in Carlisle. And somehow we get this sense that here we are taking this to remote places, but they're only remote to people who don't live there. So was there ever that kind of feeling?
Yeah, you do feel like eccentric uncle's a really good description. Yeah, one who's not quite sure if he's Scottish or English. That's specific to Carlisle. Yeah.
But the sense that somehow people were doing missionary work in what they call it? The regions. So that idea. Was there ever any sense of that? Because I got that a bit, people say, we're going to do some good work up in the north.
There was a sense, but I think there's also a sense within the place that you live. So after the Picture the Poet live event in Carlisle, everyone was so surprised at how good it was. And it was like, come on, Carlisle, have a bit of pride in your city and the fact that we can organise these events. So it was a bit of a kind of PR mission to the people who live in these places as well, to make them appreciate what's on their doorstep.
Can I? Sorry. No, you go first.
I was just going to comment that from the point of view of the Arts Council, I think what genuinely we're very impressed by the approach that's been taken by National Portrait Gallery and the partners, because there have been some conversations about helicoptering in and, you know, why have you got all this money? You know, we could just do it ourselves. And I think that there's been really good toing and froing and really working through some of those perceptions. And I think, you know, all praise to the main partners in this, because you know, it is very important that those local things are reflected, but what also is important was bringing that really high quality in and that sort of porosity. And I've just been genuinely very impressed by the sensitivity to those local communities, and certainly not wishing to patronise in any way.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something along what Alison just said. So it was difficult to say, because in some menu you had this sense that because you are coming from London, you want to impose what you're doing in London, but it's not true, because what you want to do is to know the local networking and what they're doing and see how you can work together, because you can't just parachute and do a project without knowing who you're working with. So it takes a bit of time, but after the conversation, I think everywhere we've been, even in some places which at the beginning they were really not sure, it changed completely. And in fact, it's been always a success in the end, because it really they did understand the idea of working in partnership.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Yes, over there. Thank you.
I think it's also important to point out strategic touring money. It's not about organisations in London going across the country. It's also about the regions being responsible and taking those opportunities and touring around the rest of the country. But I think with a programme like this, what for me is really interesting is I think the resources that have been able to come from it, the extensive teacher resources that were available. There's no way that a small regional gallery would be able to produce those types of schools resources that have been able to kind of come together through this programme. And I think that should be something that's maybe kind of also celebrated as part of it. And one of the questions I had earlier, and I'm really pleased to see it come through more this afternoon, was I think is the link with the visual arts. This morning was very much about literacy and poetry, but really these portraits have been made by somebody. It's not just about the person in the portrait, it's about the person that's made the portrait and the relationship between the two. And so I'm really pleased to see that there's been photography projects going alongside this, and to hear that come through this afternoon I think is really great. And I kind of wanted to just say as well, those poems totally blew me away. And I think you should be so proud to have been able to produce something like that. Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And absolutely, again, I echo, well, we all echo the fantastic poems. Just to come back to your noting about the photography workshops, are there people on the panel who might want to say a word about the photography elements of the project?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that. Yeah, it was really, really useful, because I was working on the ground with Sherston. So she was like the regional person for Apples and Snakes, and she immediately was able to network with poets in her area to pull them together, because I would never have been able to do that. That's just not something I could have done. The library might have been able to help to some extent, but she really, you know, got that project started. But we had a really interesting thing about how do we create that relationship between the photographer and the sitter, because they have no way of coming together, just the logistics of a programme. So the poets were there one day and the young people were there at the same time, and we kind of had to forge some sort of relationship about, well, what are we trying to say in this portrait? Who are these poets and what is their language and how do we get to know them. So we did some questionnaires beforehand. So it was kind of just trying to tease out some of those things about where would you like your photograph taken, sort of what inspires you and what sort of location would you like, what would you like to wear. So at least they were sort of thinking ahead of time, and the young people got to see those questionnaires before they met. So it wasn't completely coming to it blank. You know, we needed to have some sort of relationship built up, or it just wouldn't have been effective as a project.
Thank you, Jenny. And anybody else on the panel like to comment on the photography aspect?
Yeah, our photography project is still sort of ongoing. They're using the resources that are on the Picture the Poet website to carry on the project. But what they have done is had a masterclass with Madeline, who is one of the professional photographers in the exhibition, and the kids just loved it. I mean, these are students, photography students, and to meet and talk to a photographer who is making their career, making a living out of doing it, was really inspiring. So that's one element that we never would have been able to do without NPG and Apples and Snakes' help.
I just wanted to also highlight briefly, if you have a chance to see the film on the website of the Norwich project, where young people were working with the Norwich Writers' Centre, who suggested poets, and the City College, and then the young people from the photography course followed those poets around the city and took their photos. So there's more on the website. And I think also, Ashley, there was a good photography project at Lincoln as well.
Yeah, there was a great project. So we worked with the University of Lincoln Media School for the first time, and artists and the young people could choose to do drawing or photography and take two routes. And we brought in a kind of editorial photographer to do a masterclass. But it was really nice because we have a small kind of community gallery, and the young people put on an exhibition there, which was on for the entire summer. And then the poets they'd photographed self-organised a poetry reading in the space. So that happened. But that's, again, it's had an impact on how we work going forward. So this time we're having another week summer school. The university are again allowing us to use the photography workshops and giving us that staff, but we're building in that 6-week exhibition as well. So I think beforehand we've only ever had the summer school and there hasn't been a presentation part. So that's kind of shifted what we're doing.
Thank you. Other questions from the floor? Anybody? And Alison, would you like to pick you?
Yes, I was interested just to pick up on the comment you made about we don't necessarily need to wait for London-based organisations to apply to strategic touring. And I've had a few conversations with people saying, you know, how might we apply? Do we have to have a national partner? And of course, some of the times it would be really great if you had a national partner. But as I said earlier, you can actually just be an individual applying for this fund. You don't even need to have, you know, a constitution and all that regalia. And what we'd really encourage seeing is some applications coming through for the next 5 rounds. We've only got 5 more for this particular funding programme. The next round is the 13th of May. You've got a deadline then, and then running up to the 24th of March. So one of the things I would recommend you read is the response to the evaluation report, which is on the website, because one of the things that comes through there, and I'll just quote it: "We agree with the recommendation that strategic touring projects should be able to focus on retaining new audiences once they've been attracted." And I think that's quite important. So what it's saying is that all this great stuff that's being generated here, you don't have to put in another project which is just about completely new audiences. You can start from that level because you've moved up in some of these places, and you can put in a new proposal which is about further building those audiences, and perhaps with new partnerships. Perhaps, you know, you're the main applicant, but you're working with some of the national organisations in a different kind of partnership way. So if people do want to talk about potential applications, then get in touch. I've got my email, I think, on the contact sheet.
Thank you, Alison. Any other questions from the floor? No. Something I was quite interested to understand, and Daniela, perhaps you could tell us a bit more, was about actually working to find the young people's groups, and that's something that maybe others on the panel could also chip into.
Yeah. It's been invaluable the help of the venue or the local venue to find young people, because of course even we are a national organization, we don't know the territory, every bit of the territory. So the program meeting group has been really important, and the relationship with the venue, because it was to ask the venue which kind of group they wanted to work with, or so maybe there were groups that they always wanted to work with but they didn't find the opportunity to work with the young people, or maybe they were just an idea, like they wanted to work with a group but then they didn't know, they didn't have the funding, and that was the good opportunity to do that. So it's been really invaluable, the link with the venue and suggesting us which kind of people they wanted to work. Then the other part of the work was getting in contact with this organization. Some organizations were easier to work with than others, because some organizations they were maybe used to, or they were really willing to, like maybe the colleges, they do already a writing program, or other people that there were other organizations that they knew young people that they wanted to work with. With others, organization has been more difficult to come at. For example, Roundabout, Sai spoke this morning. Of course, on their list, even if for them it's important to offer arts and an escape for the young people, it's not on their priority list. Because they have so many problems that they need to solve day to day. So what has been important has been, after having the contact, to have those conversations with the people, and sometimes it's been more difficult to convince the organization to work with us, because this was something important and invaluable, and they will see the difference of the young people, than not to see that. And another thing that they were always worried was, but you know, if you work with homeless young people or people with problems, that you will not have not even 12 people, maybe that you will have just 5 people, maybe they then drop off, they don't want to come, they will not be interested. But we always were, no, there will be, you will have people coming and going, but there will be someone that will perform. You will see at the end of the 6 weeks an improvement, a change, and it's always what we have we done it, because you start with people that maybe they're not really sure, young people, it's going to be boring, it's poetry, and then they produce brilliant poems. You heard them, some of them, and in every venue it's been just like that. And that's why we do what we do, because you want to see that. You want to see them being proud of what they have achieved at the end. And then you get the organization coming to you and say, now I can see what you were trying to do.
Have anybody on the panel like to comment on working with new groups of young people?
So we worked with 2 young people's groups. One was our own youth panel, which is cheating a little bit. And the second group was from the Wordsworth Trust. Along with Lakeland Arts Trust and Wordsworth Trust, we're the Cumbria Museums Consortium, who are one of ACE's MPMs. We don't actually do a lot of joint delivery together, partly because of geography. Cumbria is just massive and there's mountains in the way. But with Wordsworth Trust, this was a really good fit. So we worked with their young people's group on the project, and knowing them at the start and knowing them at the end, the confidence that these young people it just grew and grew and grew, and seeing them perform was just such a proud moment, because to be honest, I didn't think they'd do it, because I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't perform my own work on stage. And after just a really short time, they'd got so much confidence to perform in front of a room of 100 people. So for me, seeing these young people blossom and grow was a fantastic part of the project.
Can I just say something? Sort of different to Anna in that I wasn't able to actually be part of those projects because we were just too busy delivering our own programmes. So I feel that in a way that's sacrificed some of the potential sustainability of the project. I mean, I could go and make those connections now, but I wasn't the person on the ground. I wasn't that poet. I wasn't the person who made those relationships happen and those experiences. So I think in an ideal world I would have been, because that would have made it more sustainable. And I think one of the challenges that we had was this figure that we had to achieve a certain number of young people. And of course, with any application, you've got figures that you have to try and meet, or, you know, you have a kind of guess of how many you think you're going to engage with. But of course, it's about that quality of experience, and often young people will, you know, not be able to participate. They might have things in their own personal lives. You know, the timings might not just be right. You do get drop off with these things. I think so long as that's, you know, flexible and understood, and, you know, there's a kind of understanding of that all round, then that's okay. But I think that does present from the very outset a challenge, that maybe is too much of a challenge to try and get a target number.
Thank you. And can I, yes, I was just
well,
going to pass you over to
I was just
Matt.
going to agree with the two ladies there in terms of working with young people, as we have done, in albeit a slightly different capacity to this project, is you see that with anything. I think Francesca mentioned it earlier about they're designed to learn, they're designed to sponge stuff in. And if you give the children, the young people, the students, these opportunities, whether it's cultural, visual, written, you know, any kind of sort of art, they will take that. I mean, we were chatting not so long ago about a school we used to work at in Lincoln, and we came down to London to work on a project at the Royal Albert Hall, Madame Butterfly, and they were working with a director who was going to make a film about the opera. And they'd never been on a train before, and he brought 4 of them down. And, like, I mean, you spoke about that child's face and the confidence you see grow in the children. They were stood at Newark Northgate, which is one of your favourite places, Ian, and they were like, oh my God, we're getting on a train. Like, let alone that they'd just got a hot chocolate from Costa Coffee and like all these new things that you just take for granted. And I've been down to London a million times as a child and sort of do take it for granted. And then you get these sort of far-flung schools that just don't have the budget or the time or the energy. And I think someone alluded to it this morning, you've got to book something a year in advance with a school, or at least a term in advance. So just having more and more of these opportunities that schools can pick up and put down, or just say, okay, well, we can't do that one, but yeah, we'd like to get involved next month on that run, or I just think it's great what you're doing, and yeah, it's working, yeah.
I think, yeah, I just want to add to that, the notion we're talking about kind of organisations from London dropping in. I think actually sometimes having that name is so critical, because for us going forward, we've actually realised from the project one of the real issues for our summer school is literally because Lincolnshire is so big. Nobody comes from outside Lincoln. Like, it's just impossible for anyone to get there. But because we did this project, we can now go to them, and the university are giving us all our staff time because of this project we did with the summer school, and we're now going to other funders and be like, you guys can pay for transport. And having that National Portrait Gallery name on it makes them listen, whereas if it was just us asking for transport, I don't think it would be a lot harder anyway. So I think, yeah, for this summer school, we're having all the transport paid. So we've got rid of that first issue, basically. And that really comes from having those big names behind you.
That's good to hear. And got a chance for just one last question, if anybody's got a quick last question they want to ask. No? Well, in that case, I think I'll just say thank you very much to all of the panel members, and we'll vacate the stage and let Ian come back and do a final poem for us. And thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.